Hey, it's Zave. Cibil. She may not be as hot as Hellfire, but she's up there. But is she worth using? Without any of her Introns? No. With all her Introns though? Still no. Cibil sucks, and it's really simple why. She just doesn't do enough damage. The thing that sucks about that is because it's such an easy fix. Her kit is actually well designed, fun to use, her visual design is great, her voice actor played my wife in another universe, and she's one of my favorite archetypes of characters in games, an HP scaler. With all that being said, even with 6 copies of her, she still pales in comparison to other DPS units like Lady Niffle, Psyche, Rebecca, Lynn, Lizbel, or Berenica. But if you're like me and you don't really care about who the best characters are, you just enjoy playing who you like, then let's talk about Cibil, why she's weak, and how we can fix her. Cibil's kit is pretty synergistic and easy to understand. Her passive is that every time you trigger a bonus effect, which is based on the trigger probability stat, she gains a resource called Might of Thunder. If she has enough of this resource, the rest of her kit can be enhanced using it. Her skill 1 does a burst of damage, and if you have enough Might of Thunder, it'll continue to do damage over time to any enemies within range for a duration. You can have 3 copies of her skill 1 on the field at the same time. Her skill 2 drops an orb on the field that deals damage over time and links to nearby enemies. This orb can then be attacked and a portion of that damage is dealt to the linked enemies. You may be thinking, that sounds like a lot of sources of damage, and you'd be correct. The initial damage and damage over time from her skill 1, the damage over time from her skill 2, and the damage you pump into the orb that spreads to the enemies it's linked to. From just reading her kit, you'd think that she would shred enemies, but she doesn't. Not only does she not have any grouping capabilities, but she just doesn't have the damage. Maybe her Introns can fix that though, so let's go over them. Her first Intron slightly raises the ratio of the damage transfer that her orb does when it's struck by her skill 1, but it's not that big of an increase. Her second Intron doubles the cap of Might of Thunder, going from 300 to 600, and for every point of Might of Thunder that you have, the damage of the DOT on her skill 1 increases, all the way to a max of an additional 60% if you have 600 points. Meanwhile, the damage transfer ratio of her orb is increased by a max of 6% if you have 600 points. Again, it sounds good on paper, but it just doesn't pump out the numbers that she needs to keep up with other DPS characters. Her fourth Intron makes the damage over time on her skill 1 capable of triggering a bonus effect of its own. This one is actually pretty good because it makes filling her passive way quicker, and once you get her skill up, it's basically becomes self-sufficient. Her last Intron causes an enemy to take a big burst of damage when they first get linked to her orb, but just like the rest of her kit, the damage is underwhelming. So let's talk about demon wedges. Maybe with the help of actually getting a build online, you can get some damage out of her. You're gonna want to go with Griffin's Thunder Wildfire. The reason why is because the additional range is nice to have since she doesn't have any grouping capabilities and enemies tend to get knocked out of her range. Next is Simanis' Ravaging Thunder. It gives a nice addition to skill damage and increases your skill damage every time you use an ability. For Typhon's Prime, you can either go with the Uplift or the Serenity variation. Uplift gives you and your team a damage boost and Serenity gives you more sanity regen. I've also seen some people experiment with the Morale variation, but I don't know how those damage calculations compare to just running Uplift. For the last few slots, I'd recommend any combination of Nirvana and Volition variations of Covenator's Blaze. I've looked at some damage calcs and it seems that health scaling has diminishing returns, so I'd recommend 2 to 3 Nirvana variations at most, and then the rest can be Volition variations for the skill damage. Finally, the weapon loadout. Her signature whip sword Undying on Arrows is a no-brainer for her melee. It can reach near 100% trigger probability, so building up her passive is extremely easy, and it gives a nice 50% additional max health, which she needs because she's a health scaler. For the ranged weapon, I like to go with the X-Crest Duo simply for the additional skill damage. She needs all the skill damage she can get. So with the demon wedges up, understanding how her kit works, all 6 of her Introns activated, let's see her damage. Yeah, it's not that great. We've talked about how to get Cibil up and running, but let's talk about what changes can be made to actually make her good. Number 1, give grouping capabilities to her orb. Literally, just giving her orb a slight magnetic pull on enemies it's linked to can help so much with her kit, because as it currently is, enemies tend to get flung out of range of her abilities, and she misses out on damage because of it. Number 2, a weapon damage buff. Anybody who's done endgame or even gotten close will happily tell you weapon damage is the joke in this game. Not a single weapon can output as much damage as a character's skills, and none of the characters are potent enough as weapon platforms to make weapon damage viable, except maybe Rhythm. She has a 90% damage boost, but I haven't had a chance to test her. We either need a big buff to weapon platform characters or a big buff to weapon damage overall. Whether that be done through demon wedge adjustments or just a flat buff to the numbers, something has to be done, because if weapons actually had viable damage, Cibille's damage transfer on her orb would actually be useful. Finally, number 3, a buff to all non-attack scalers. Now, I personally am a Hellfire main, and now that I have a heavily invested Intron 6 Cibil, and I'm also going for an Intron 6 Randy, I'm someone who's used all 3 characters pretty extensively. It's safe to say that if you don't scale off of attack, your damage is gutted. The only character right now who can do any type of damage despite not scaling with attack is Truffle and Filbert, and that's only when she's on Filbert in her ult. Characters who scale off of HP and defense need some love. So we kept it quick, we kept it brief, that's about it. I definitely do not recommend investing in Cibil, at least not right now. Maybe if we get some changes to scaling, weapon damage buffs, or if the current content starts to revolve around the Electro element, I could say use her, but right now, as of patch 1.0, nah, save your time and skip her. With that being said, make sure you're all using your weekly boss fights for Hellfire because she's the best girl in the game, and have yourself a damn good one.